thanks again for joining us. We have the pleasure of hearing from Sara Teppema, Chair of the Joint SOA-CAS Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We've been talking a little bit about the Joint Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that's sponsored by the SOA and the CAS. Sara, let me ask you a few more questions about the committee. What have you accomplished so far, and what initiatives are on the horizon that people should be aware about?
Well, so the JSEAT has been in existence about a year. We have done a lot of work in terms of, career encouragement, so that beefing up that high school actuarial day, and the career encouragement work group is just doing a lot of other stuff and reaching out to other organizations and making sure that beanactuary.org is what it needs to be. So they kind of keep an eye on that. So they were already doing a lot of work. So they're just going gangbusters and doing some great stuff. But the leadership development group has looked into leadership development pipelines and how both organizations, that both the SOA and the CAS, how they grow leaders and how they bring leaders forth, and what are some things that we could be doing to encourage more diversity and inclusion in our leadership. And so stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pike on that. The other thing we've done a lot of is talking to other committees in professional development, but really all our committees, about the need for diversity. And I think you appreciate this too, but we all know that, and all the data, the science shows us that teams that are more diverse and more inclusive tend to be much more successful. Companies that are diverse are more successful. That diversity can really spur innovation. And innovation is that big word right now, but we all want to be more innovative. We want to be more creative, and the only way you can do that is to have diverse people on your team. So, what we're trying to do is convey that message to other committees and make sure that, for example, our PD committees understand that they need to have more diverse leadership. So, like, for example, I know the SOA's Professional Development Committee is now, they kind of have a standing topic on their agenda to make sure that they're addressing diversity and inclusion. I'll just share a really interesting piece of data that I heard about at the SOA, and I think this is true actually of lots of organizations, not just us. It might be true of the CCA, I'm not sure. But what we found is that when we looked at speakers at our meetings in the sessions, they are pretty diverse in terms of gender. So women and men, you tended to have a fairly representative distribution of speakers. But if you broke that out into moderators versus the experts were disproportionately men, and the moderators were disproportionately women. And I found that to be an absolutely fascinating statistic. And so how do we encourage women to speak up and say, hey, I have got something really important to say, I'm an expert? And how do we encourage meeting planners and coordinators to see that and to make sure that they understand the importance of having diverse representation in a panel or in a meeting? So that kind of stuff is raising that awareness and having people think about it, having it on the forefront of their mind is a really important thing.
And I think that's one of the things that, as we talk through this subject, that a lot of times it's not only just bringing it to awareness, but it's helping people understand what things they can do. And I think we've seen progress in the profession on that front. You don't have to look any further than the makeup of the boards of some of the actuarial organizations in the U.S. to see that, right? At the CCA, we pride ourselves on the fact that our split of men and women is about 50-50. We have people of color, we have white people, we have older, younger, and for all the same reasons that you just mentioned, right? The research, and when you've actually experienced it, when you're in a group of diverse people, you do get, I think, better outcomes. I think we can see that with the SOA's recent election. I think I heard this the other day that with the new board members coming in, there will actually be more women on the SOA's board than men, which is obviously disproportionate compared to the members as a whole, but I think it's something that's aspirational, right? If we want to encourage more women in the profession, they need to see more women in those leadership roles.
Yeah, well, one board does not make a tradition of gender balance. So no, I'm really, really excited about the SOA board, and I think it's 11-7. men to women, or women to men, I should say. This is the first time we've had more than 50% on the SOA board ever. So that's wonderful for us, and I'm very excited about that. And we do need more people of color. We're getting a little more age diversity, which I love seeing as well, because I know our younger members have a totally different viewpoint than our older members. And so age diversity is a really important thing. And I'm glad to see that too on the CCA's board. I know you guys are working on that as well. So I think you get, again, it just spurs innovation. You get a lot more creative thinking when you've got different backgrounds. But yeah, I think there's a lot that, actuaries can do, and in terms of supporting these initiatives. And it's not just, running for boards of our organizations. I think there's a lot we can do in our workplaces. And, I guess the biggest thing that I would say that actuaries can do to change this or move the needle is to rethink recruiting and hiring. We know that, again, as we talked about earlier, kids of color aren't as aware of the profession. They don't necessarily have as much time to pass exams. So what we've heard is some organizations are actually reserving 1 or 2 internship spots to completely wipe it off the recommended typical rubric for hiring candidates, and instead taking a look at some other things and trying to hire interns with diverse backgrounds, and same thing with full-time hires. So not looking at exam success, but look at college success, look at work background, not necessarily actuarial work background, but the fact that somebody had to work full-time or, mostly full-time while they were going to school. What does that say about that person and the fact that they succeeded at college? And wouldn't you want to have that person on your team over somebody who had it all handed to them, because they had an affluent family? So think about things like that and rethink the way you hire, and also rethink about where you hire from. There are great actuarial programs at a lot of different universities, and that's wonderful, but those universities don't always attract the students of color. So go to where those students of color are. For example, historically Black colleges and universities, a few of them have great actuarial programs that aren't necessarily the ones that we always think about, but they have professors that really are pushing it and really care. So think about recruiting at some alternative colleges and universities instead of the places where you always go. So I would say that would be like one of the biggest things that we could do to start to move the needle.
So let me expound on that a little bit, because at least within the CCA, our membership is, we've got people that come from the large companies where you've got an HR recruiting function that can focus on that stuff and can put a lot of emphasis on it. But we've also got substantial members that come from small and medium-sized firms that maybe don't have those recruiting functions built out to the extent that you would see in a larger firm. What advice would you have for people that are working and maybe in leadership positions in those small or medium-sized firms? What things can they do, or should they be looking to do?
That's a great question, because it takes a little extra work. I mean, it's easy to go, this is true of anything to do with inclusion, it's really easy to go to the places you've always gone and talk to the people who look just like you, and go to the known things that you've always done. But that's not going to make you innovative and creative. That's going to make you do the same things that you've always done. And it's going to promote the status quo. If that's what you want to do, great. But if you want to, again, promote some new ways of thinking, try to go outside the box. Maybe just seek out, of course, SOA, CAS have great resources in terms of recommendations for programs, colleges. If you wanted to go recruit at some HBCUs, we have connections and we can definitely help you make those connections. We'd be happy to do that. Another way to get involved is reach out to the IABA, the International Association of Black Actuaries, or the Organization of Latino Actuaries, because they can help you make a lot of those connections as well. I don't know if you're aware, but IABA has this amazing boot camp program where they bring Black candidates through this really cool program. And at their annual meeting every year, it culminates in them giving a little short presentation. And a lot of the kids also go through mock interviews. They're super well prepared. And they're like, so reach out to the IAB and figure out how you can get connected into their boot camp program and some of their candidates. and there are other, there are other ways to do that. Maybe through your alma mater, find out, most universities have a STEM for people of color program and multiple programs. So it might be Black people, Black students in STEM or Hispanic students in STEM. Find those organizations and reach out to them. And they will probably connect you with great candidates as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from personal experience working through the Organization of Latino Actuaries and volunteering to even conduct those mock interviews or do some of those resume reviews that there's a lot of value that we can help add as just individual contributors, whether or not that person ends up coming and working for our company or not, at least helping prepare them to be able to get a job somewhere. I found that to be a very rewarding aspect and a way to give back as well. So I'd highly encourage people to reach out and volunteer with both the International Association of Black Actuaries as well as the Organization of Latino Actuaries. So Sarah,
yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about some of we have been making progress clearly. I mean, we can see that in some of the makeup of, at least within the professional associations and leadership roles, but what are the big challenges you feel like as a profession we're facing, and especially with what the Joint Committee is trying to accomplish, where are you meeting resistance or obstacles?
The interesting thing is it's kind of the opposite. We're not meeting that much resistance, and it's more like we're trying to drink from the fire hose, and just there's so much we want to do. So, one of the challenges has been, how do we measure this when we don't have good data? As every actuary can appreciate, it's very hard. We always have incomplete data. We have to figure out how to work with that incomplete data. So that's one of the things we're working on. So again, we're asking everyone to please complete their profile just so we know, who they are and what's going on there. I think, so yeah, I get the biggest challenge is there's just too much to do. I think another thing is, like, we know we can reach the people who care about this, the people who are paying attention and reading about it and thinking a lot about it. But how do we reach that next tier? Like the folks who are working at those organizations, we either need to understand the business case for diversity, or again, they believe the meritocracy myth and they don't think we have a problem. How do we reach out to them and get them to be more inclusive and kind of work through their own biases? So, we'd love to see every member get trained on unconscious bias. We can't force that, but that would be an amazing result. But if anything, we can make those trainings available. So we're working on that right now.
Yeah, and I know we've had with the CCA. I mean, we've had a couple of sessions on unconscious bias. Last year's annual meeting. Been interwoven in some of the community forum discussions we've had. And I know as I've sat in on those, it really does challenge the way that you think. It makes you challenge the way you think, which is
yeah.
even better, right? And to think about why is it that if somebody asks me a question, this is my answer. Why is it my answer? And it kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about the other day, which is some people may find it ironic that we've got two white people sitting here talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why do we care, right? And I know my answer to that is because I've actually seen it play out in practice, and I see the value that comes from it. And first and foremost, when you and I were talking last week, I'll just share this personal anecdote on it. So while I became an actuary, my wife studied philosophy. We couldn't be further on either ends of the spectrum in terms of how we think about things. And over the course of our marriage, that's come to benefit me immensely, to where now, instead of, I will go out and seek my wife's opinion on even professional things to say, okay, here's the problem that I'm dealing with, and here's how I'm thinking about it. What am I missing? Because I know I'm missing something because I see things one way. And a lot of times I find that getting that input and helping get different perspective on a way a problem could be viewed helps me come to a better outcome when it comes to the solution. I don't know what your experience has been on that front.
Oh, absolutely. And thinking, just making yourself think outside the box and putting yourself in another person's shoes sometimes is all you need to do, is really, to think through a problem. I think one of the things that I would say is another way for people to get involved too, and what you said just reminded me of this, is everyone should be an ally in terms of inclusion and diversity. And so a lot of times that means, speaking up on behalf of somebody, or it means encouraging somebody to speak up on their own behalf. Sometimes that's more appropriate. sometimes it just means you invite them into the conversation. Like you consciously go, you know, I would be very interested to hear what Michael has to say about that and get their opinion. A lot of times, you know, people either don't have the power or they don't feel like they have the power in the power structure to speak up, but when they're invited, they'll share something very insightful. So to be a good ally, you have to invite people, but inviting doesn't necessarily, you know, it might happen in different ways. It might happen behind the scenes. It might happen in the forefront, but making sure that you're always thinking through, like, okay, what are we missing here? Who else do we need to hear from? What would make this dialogue more rich? You know, always be thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that even in my role as president of the CCA in our board meetings. One of my goals was to make sure that, you know, we've got this board of about 20 people. I want to make sure that we're hearing from everyone, because I don't want people to be left out of those discussions, because usually they have good opinions and good thoughts that maybe can get overshadowed by the more vocal people in the
Yep.
group. And so allowing them that opportunity, inviting them in, I absolutely agree with you. And I've seen how that benefits us as an organization and the decisions that we come to.
Yeah, totally.
All right.